Good morning. My name is Phil Asgian, a member of Westminster's Social Justice Ministry team. And each program year, we build the forums around a common theme. This year's theme is moving from understanding to transformation, affecting change together, guided by God. Through these forums, we want to explore the capabilities we need to build and norms we need to examine in order to be effective transformation partners in our community. This morning, we are pleased to welcome Jenelle Hill, a reading teacher at J.J. Hill Montessori School in St. Paul. Jenelle has been an educator for over 20 years, worked internationally and here in the Twin Cities. She's a mom with 3 young children, so she gets to put her work into practice. And her topic today is growing the foundation, the development of literacy and young learners. So we'll take a look at current methods for effective reading strategy and the challenges educators and parents, and I might add grandparents, face in growing their readers. Before we get started, just a couple short items. For those that are in the room, as we come to discussion points, I have a microphone and I'll bring that to you so everyone can hear your questions or comments. And if you're on the live stream, please put your comments or questions in the chat. And Jim is monitoring that and we'll be able to share those with everybody as well. As part of our efforts to promote respectful conversations, we've established some guidelines for discussions this morning. And so we'd like to take a few minutes to just have everybody review these guidelines. I'll just give you a minute to read through those real quick. So before we get started, just a short prayer, and then we'll turn it over to Jenelle. Let us pray. Holy One, God of justice, breathe into us today a spirit of curiosity and humility. Help us engage with mindfulness, following the voices from our community. Guide our speech and self-awareness so we may honor the divine in all. Amen. So, with that, please welcome Jenelle Hill.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Phil. I'm privileged to be here today thanks to one of your members, Suzanne Rico. So I've been working with Suzanne Rico, who's not here today. Maybe she's on the live stream. If you are Suzanne watching, hi, I miss you. I've been working with Miss Rico for the last 3 years at J.J. Hill Montessori School. I've been in education over 20 years, spanning from working in Woodbury. I taught internationally in the country of Oman. I taught in Italy. I came back and taught in St. Paul. I also worked in Minneapolis Public Schools for 4 years as an instructional coach at Green Central Elementary, just down the road. Came back to St. Paul Public Schools, and I'm steeped in education. My husband is also an educator. He's an assistant principal at Champlin Senior High. And we have 3 young children, 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, almost 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So education is my life. It's what I do professionally, and it's what I do personally, being a mom and trying to raise 3 little beings to be their best selves and to be the best readers that they can be. So here's 3 kids. We were recently at the Mall of America doing some rides. So I've got Ruby, my 8-year-old, on the lower right, my middle child in the back, Scarlett, and then my son in front. We call him Cinco. He is a 5th. He is William Hill the 5th. And so as a little pandemic baby, I he just had a nickname, so we nicknamed him Cinco. So now he just goes by Cinco. And then late in the game, I added a picture of my husband. It didn't make the slide, but we're celebrating our 10-year wedding this week on Friday. So sorry, honey, you didn't make the cut here anyways. I just want us to take a minute to introduce ourselves at our table. You may know everybody, you may not, but just take a minute and introduce to the people at your table, because we are going to do some talking as a small group throughout the presentation. So go ahead and take a minute. I love a chatty group. This is great. I'm going to bring us back together. I'm glad you were able to connect. We're going to have more opportunities to turn and share. This quote right here, I'm going to read to you. It's something that grounds our work in St. Paul Public Schools. Suzanne and I go to monthly professional development with other reading teachers, and we usually kick off reading this statement. So I'm going to read it to you. It says, "It's important to disrupt practices that perpetuate biases, racism, and discrimination. Making the shift to scientifically based reading instruction is an extremely important component to dismantle frameworks that perpetuate bias. Literacy is the gateway to equity. The choices schools make regarding practices, despite our greatest intentions, can have serious consequences for students, especially those who have been historically marginalized, Black, Brown, Indigenous students, and students born with learning disabilities, learning differences. And that comes from decoding dyslexia." I just want to sit for a couple seconds with that. This is the reason that I do the work that I do. I do believe literacy is the gateway to equity. When you're able to read, the world is unlocked to you. And as educators, it's our duty to be making decisions every day in the choices we present to students to make sure that they have access to literacy. So this is constantly on our minds. This is constantly on our hearts to make sure we're providing these experiences for all of our students. So just briefly what I'm going to cover today, I'm going to cover this thing that's happening right now, this buzzword called science of reading. I'm going to touch in on some legislation that was passed last year that's currently going into effect that impacts schools in Minnesota and reading, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about reading at home. So I don't know if you've heard this buzz, but there's this current trend, it's trending, called science of reading. What's happening in Minnesota, and I'll touch on this in a little bit, is that we have not had a lot of parameters on how to teach kids how to read, nor have we had a lot of parameters on what curriculums to use. What happens is that a big district like Minneapolis, I was a part of one of their curriculum adoptions 9 years ago, you get pitched a great sales pitch, and the district leaders take the top 3 sales pitches of these curriculum companies, and they might run a pilot program in a couple classrooms, and they'll hear from the teachers how that curriculum goes, and then they make a decision based on budget, based on what the numbers are, but there's nothing top down saying these are the components your reading curriculum needs to have. Now we have that coming up, but it hasn't been there in the past. So there's just not been a lot of consistency in our state around reading, and nationally, so be it either. So science of reading is saying, okay, we actually know how to develop a reader. We have tons of research. We have tons of articles that if we boil it down to, there is a formula. There is a formula, and we should be teaching to that formula and helping a child learn how to read. And so that formula is taking the product of reading comprehension, decoding, and language comprehension. And when I say decoding, think back to Hooked on Phonics. So decoding is learning what the letters stand for and what sound your mouth makes when you read that single letter or that group of letters together, like the SH, like the CH, like the TH. So decoding is knowing what to say when you come to a group of letters. But we need more than just knowing what to say. We need to know what it means, right? We need to know what it means. We need to know what we're reading and how to express that. In St. Paul Public Schools, we have adapted another new curriculum, right? This happens every 3 or 4 years. We get a new curriculum. We need to follow it. And as a veteran educator, as things come out, it's like, oh, okay, well, what's going to be next? I know this is only going to last a couple years, and then there's going to be something new, which is good too, because that newness means someone's been doing some research, right? And we should follow the research. You don't want the doctor that you see to be following the practices that they did in 1972. Same as educators. Like, it's annoying to get new things all the time, but we want to be on the cutting edge. We want to know what the new research says, just like you want to go to your doctor and your doctor be utilizing the current research in treating you. So UFLI is UFLI, UFLI is what we call it. It stands for University of Florida Literacy Institute. They've been doing the research, and they have packaged this program that St. Paul adopted 2 years ago. I've been doing it for 2 years. And it is a scientifically based program in teaching kids how to read. I got some things right there. So Suzanne Rico and I, we pull kids all day long in the Montessori. We pull little small groups all day long, 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids for about 20 minutes at a time. And we run through this curriculum. They also get it in their homeroom as well. We're kind of the little extra. We're the little extra boost. We're the little extra support for some of our struggling readers. And what UFLI has done is that they've looked at all the research on what you need to know as a reader at what age. So what I have to hand out right now is a scope and sequence of all the components of decoding. And this is kind of the order in which we teach them at school, starting with the letter A. But we don't teach it in order of the alphabet. We teach it in order of frequency. So after A comes M, S, and T. Those are some of the most frequent letter sounds. So our little baby kindergartners that come in, we're teaching them the letters A, S, M, and T. And then we're teaching them right away how to turn those letters into a word. You only need to know those 4 letter sounds, and you can start reading words like sat and mat. So we don't wait now till we know all the letters of the alphabet to teach them how to put them together. Teaching them how to put together those sounds at a very early age is going to be super helpful in their reading development. So just if you were ever curious, or if you have a little reader in your life, this is kind of the newest information on what skills to teach them when, starting from number 1. As a little, like I said, little kindergartner, we're starting with those beginning alphabet sounds. All the way, this sequence goes through 2nd grade, all the way up to lesson 128. So my 2nd grader right now, my Ruby, she's more on like lesson 95, 96, 97. Yeah. But this is so helpful as a parent even to know how my child is doing and kind of where they fall in the sequence of reading. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
How do you accommodate different speeds, developmental speeds of children?
Yes, great question. So that is the work Miss Rico and I do. So in their classroom, they're getting a general first grade lesson or second grade lesson. And what Miss Rico and I do is that we give students additional testing at the beginning of the year to see which of these skills they know and don't know. So our little small groups of 4 or 5 kids at a time are targeted based on where they fall on the sequence. Because I've got a small group that I pull and they're at like lesson 19. And so they're getting that strategic instruction at about lesson 19. And other groups that are grouped together, 4 or 5 students at different spots along this continuum.
And how about accelerated students?
Yep. So accelerated students, Ms. Rico and I don't necessarily work with. We work with more remedial students, but in their classroom teacher would pair them up with some literature to help them move along.
Did you?
Yeah, I do. I guess one. The men's group here last month read the book of Boys and Men, and he recommended that boys be held back a year. Do you see a gender difference?
Great question. I see this a lot. I was a kindergarten teacher for 15 years, so I had many conversations with families about what to do with their young kids, their summer birthday kids, the June, July, August. They had just turned 5. It's rare that we recommend holding a child back. We have not seen, and there's not a lot of research to support that 1 year is going to make a difference in the trajectory of their reading, academics. So yeah, we haven't seen that to be, and even just at our school right now, we had a couple little boys that we held back a couple years ago. They're still struggling. So that wasn't the answer. Just a couple examples of what I do on a daily basis and what science of reading looks like. It's again very much, remember that Hooked on Phonics in the 80s? We watched the infomercials. You might have purchased it or had someone in your family purchase it for something at home. It's very systematic. So when we teach a skill, it's very isolated. We have multiple opportunities to practice that skill, and we just keep targeted and focused. We master that skill before we move on. That's essentially it. We're not trying to cover 12 different things in a lesson. We are just hyper focused on 1 or 2 things in a lesson that include phonemic awareness. That's just without even seeing print. Phonemic awareness is, are you able to hear the sound and isolate the sound? So again, a lot of my little ones, it's just even hearing what sounds are in the word cat. They can all say cat, but when I ask them, okay, what are the 3 sounds in the word cat? It's k, at. There are so many kids that are not there yet developmentally. They have not had practice yet to manipulate the sounds in the word. Or drop an ending off of a word, such as, okay, we'll say cat, but change the T to a D. What word would you have? Just that mental work is so important to say, oh, cad, it'd be cad. So that phonemic awareness is not looking at anything, it's doing the work in your brain and isolating and manipulating the sounds. Visual drill is then looking at the letter and making the sound. Auditory drill is hearing the sound and writing the matching letter. Blending drill is when we put it all together. We're gonna put 3 sounds together and we're gonna read a word, and then I introduce just 1 new concept. So it's the same format every day. That really works with a lot of students. Primarily, it works really well with a lot of our marginalized students that have just been thrown a ton at them. And when we just do the same thing every day and we keep it consistent, they know what to expect. There's some safety in coming to group and just knowing what is going to be expected of them. It takes the risk way down here. When they come and I'm like, yep, look at our slides. It's hard for kids when they come and you're just throwing something new at them every day. It's hard for them to wrap around what their place is in that and what their role is in that when they're just when a teacher might be flying by the seat of their pants. So this program gives us that consistency and gives students the consistency to be successful. Yeah.
One of the online viewers asks how to get a copy of this. Is that available online or?
Yeah, great question. Hi. So the beautiful thing about UFLI, the UFLI, University of Florida Literacy Institute, is that everything online is free. Even as educators, there's no password or login thing. So if you went to Google and you just typed in UFLI, there's going to be a whole website of things that are free. The only thing districts have to purchase to run this program is the $90 teacher manual. So cost-wise, it's a really low entry point in programming and teaching kids how to read. So head to the website, which is awesome. Again, just another example of the slide. So here we're just isolating and we're practicing the J sound. And it's just going to be consistent, and I'm getting a lot of student participation. We're doing this together. I'm not isolating anybody to do it by themselves. This is just a together activity. I'll check in on their individual skills at the end of the week, but this is all practicing together. And then something new that has happened in education. So we know there are high frequency words or sight words that don't follow the rules necessarily in the English language. There's a lot of them. It is not an easy language to learn how to read, and we take that pressure off of kids because we tell them this from a very early age. I tell my kindergartners, there are some really tricky words that aren't going to make sense. And what we do is we call those tricky words heart words. We have to know a part of that word by heart. Like the word said. Weird word, right? It doesn't make any sense. And I do this whole thing with kids and I say, okay, it sounds like ed. It sounds like an E. It sounds like E's making the eh. E's not even in this word. How crazy is that? So I explicitly teach that AI part with the heart under it, that's the tricky part. Your brain knows S, that's regular. Your brain knows the D, that's regular. That's why you got two blue little blocks under there. But that tricky part in the middle, that's the part that we just have to look for and know in our heart that it's going to make the E sound. So instead of just saying, you need to know this word, memorize it. Memorize this word. We take it one step further now, and we let them know which part of the words they do know. They do have the skill to unlock a part of that word. There's just going to be one part of the word that's weird. Yeah. I can run you my microphone. Yeah.
Thank you. This makes so much sense. I'm remembering the controversy with basal reading, where you were always learning whole words and phrases and things like that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
is the heart word approach relatively new? And if so, what have you seen as you shifted to that approach with the students that you work with?
Yeah, good question. Basal reading was a thing. Whole language was a thing. You just have to know the word. You were just expected to memorize the word as it appeared right in its print. It's about been 2 years since we've done this. I've just seen, I don't have a lot of scientific data myself. I've just seen kids feel way more comfortable, especially when I just cue them, oh, remember the AI says eh. So I'm not saying you don't know the word, I'm just cueing them what part of the word is the tricky part. And then they can go at it with a little bit more confidence with that, okay, yep, ed, said. And when we do our writing practice every week, I've got little heart stickers. So when I have them write a sentence, mom said, wash the dishes, I have little heart stickers, so then we put a little heart sticker underneath the heart words. So in my work with little ones, we got two different kind of words. We have sound out words and we have heart words. So a sound out word, I've at that point taught them everything they need to know to sound it out. You've got the tools, you can do it. The heart words, that one kind of cues their brain, even when I just say heart word, to go, oh yeah, there's going to be something tricky about this word. I can't just straight up sound it out from beginning to end and be successful. So then I kind of cue them again, just that little tricky part. So yeah, we've moved away from the whole language piece, right? In education, we just shift back and forth. But we've got more science now. We've got more science to back what we're doing. And just in the 2 years that I've been doing this every day with my little small groups, oh my goodness, I've just seen tremendous success. And I've been teaching kids how to read for 20 years. Yeah.
This word right here, it's if we want to read it in French, you will say Saïd, which in Arabic means happy. So it's very confusing for background French multilinguals, like for example, Morocco. Morocco, if you get any Moroccan immigrant here, they've been colonized by France and they study French as second language. And that will be very challenging, confusing, because Said becomes Said.
Yes. And that's where it is important to do the decoding along with it being in context, right? So the work then is taking that word said, learning how to read it, and learning it in context in a sentence that makes sense to them. So that's just a little bit about what Miss Rico and I do on a daily basis, helping kids learn how to read and starting with the fundamentals. So I kind of talked about this in the beginning. We're going to do a little sharing. I'm going to have you share, how did you learn to read? So we might have to go back a few years, just a couple years. I was really blessed to go to a little Lutheran school, and pastor's wife was my kindergarten teacher. And my kindergarten consisted of 4 little girls that had kindergarten in pastor's basement. And Mrs. Keel, they had a split level, and the bottom of the split level, she ran this beautiful little kindergarten class. So I was in a little classroom of 4 with pastor's wife. So I had a beautiful start and a beautiful support to how I started to learn how to read. But turn and share at your table. How did you learn how to read? I'm going to have you wrap up your conversation and bring it back together. Thank you. It's so interesting, isn't it? Just spanning generations and time and location, just different ways we all learned how to read. I'm going to jump to something that's happening at our school that's pretty amazing. We have a partnership with Unity Church in Paul on Portland. And we're blessed by this partnership. And it actually started with Unity community members volunteering at Obama Elementary in St. Paul Public Schools. They did this for years, and Obama Elementary closed at the end of last year. They are completely reconstructing the school, and J.J. Hill is then moving into that building in a year. So anyways, when Obama closed, Unity contacted our principal and said, oh, well, we'd love to continue this partnership with J.J. Hill. We've been helping out at Obama for years, and our principal said, oh my gosh, yes, that'd be great. So some names were passed along to me, and I did some communicating at the beginning of the year. Come to find out, there were a lot of church volunteers that were reading. So we currently have, just specifically volunteers that I work with, we have 5 volunteers that come every week to school. Miss Pauline is one of them. She's amazing. A couple of the volunteers have previous teaching or education experience, but not all of them. No experience required. And this is Pauline reading with little Bonnie. Bonnie is one of our first graders. And at the beginning of the year, Bonnie didn't want to work with anybody. And Pauline's just disposition and kindness and care just broke through that little barrier, and now they're just the best of buds. So what we're blessed with is our reading volunteers reading with one kid at a time, specifically on the text that I just taught them. So I've got a couple examples. We use a series of books, actually from Australia. Australia, they know what they're doing with teaching kids how to read. I did some digging because St. Paul Public Schools had purchased these books for us, and I was like, oh, these are really nice. These are really nice, high-quality books. They're all nonfiction. The pictures are beautiful, and I was like, oh, let me do some digging. I think this is worth digging into. And I did some digging into this company called Little Learners Love Literacy, and yeah, they've been around since like 1996. They know what they're doing. So the texts are super engaging, and they sequence from a beginning reader to a more developing reader. As you can see, the text is really simple to read on the page, and I have taught these letters and I have taught these sight words. There's nothing new here for the kid to figure out. They've been taught these things, but now it's time to practice these things. There's not enough time in the school day for a child to get the reading practice that they need. It's so hard. It's so hard. So having the volunteer come in, grab their little bag of books. These are all 5 different books at the same level. So the volunteer goes in, there's a handy little checkoff sheet. So they read about 3 books together. The child reads to the volunteer. The volunteer checks it off, and they move on to their next little one. So you can see the whole get up there, the books, the options that Bonnie has to pick from at her level. Miss Pauline's got her little stickers, so she loves giving a sticker after the little ones read. It's an amazing partnership. I have some little kids that don't love school. School's not their happy place. They're there because they have to be. But come, let's say, October, November, they would come up to me and say, Miss Hill, is Miss Kathy going to be here today? Have you seen Miss Pauline? I mean, they are obsessed with the 15 minutes that they get this reading volunteer, one-on-one. And as I tell the volunteers, you're not their. I'm going to be their teacher. You just get to be their cheerleader. Just cheer them on. Just tell them how awesome they're doing. And just that little bit of cheerleading, that 15 minutes throughout the week, these little ones are just crazed to be with their reading volunteer. I mean, again, some of these kids don't love school, and they might come to school just for this 15 minutes every week. I'm telling you, me down. If one of our volunteers is on vacation for the week or needed some time off, they will find me and just be, God, where is Ruth? And so we've just been incredibly blessed by this partnership. So when I think about your mission on transformational change, I don't know if you have any current partnerships with Minneapolis. Something to think about in future work. It's a blessing. No experience required. You just got to give a lot of attaboys and a lot of good jobs, and man, it hits the heartstrings at the right spot. I kind of teased this at the beginning, but Minnesota is doing the right things in making sure that our little ones have the reading foundation that they need.
I've just been asked to give you this mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fresh mic. Again, we didn't have much in place from a legislative point of view on ensuring that schools had what they need to develop young readers. The No Child Left Behind, long time ago, had its pros and cons. There were a lot of cons, but there were a lot of pros because they were setting the bar high. They were setting expectations high. It was one of those all or nothing things, which was really hard. And if you didn't meet that bar, you were penalized. And that's not the answer in education. We don't have enough resources or funds for that. But there were components of No Child Left Behind that were really good because they were saying, yes, there are requirements. We want states to have these things in place. So yes, that needed to go away, and it took us way too long to figure something out. But we are here. We are here, and Governor Walz signed in the Minnesota Reading to Ensure Academic Development Act, the READ Act, last year on May 24th. So a couple components of this. One being, all teachers will have to take a training on the science of reading. All teachers. I think we've got about a year or two to complete it. But again, if you are a more senior teacher, you might not have had this even in your teacher preparation program in your college, right? You're just at the disposal of whatever your district is giving you. And now the state is saying, nope, we're going to have all of our teachers be trained in the science of reading and how to teach reading. So there are 3 different courses that a district can choose from. So I'll learn more from St. Paul Public Schools on which one I need to take outside of our time at school. But that's one thing that is really solid coming out of this. Another thing coming out of this is they have vetted probably almost all the reading programs you can vet. And they highlighted the top 3 reading programs that have shown success. And the state is going to reimburse any districts that choose one of these reading programs. UFly, what we do in St. Paul Public Schools, made the list. So the district has set aside, the state has set aside $35 million to reimburse districts that choose a program that is based in the science of reading. So from district leadership point of view, well, that sounds great. These programs cost millions of dollars. Well, we're in tight budgets all the time. So for the district to, the state again, to allocate $35 million to the resources and to fund proven programs is a pretty big deal. Do you want me to run this microphone?
What can we do? Because I don't live in Minneapolis School District. So what should I do to see what my school district is doing to get that grant money?
So it all depends on where they are in their current cycle of curriculum development. Some people might have just purchased a program 2 years ago, and they might not be able to switch it out for another 1 or 2 years. So I would go to your home district's webpage and just poke around a little bit on curriculum resources and see what they have. This website where all of the READ stuff is where you can see the 3 that were chosen as being refundable by the state. And then there's a huge list of considerations. So there are districts that are saying, well, we actually do think we have a really good reading program. Can you take a second look at this? So they're in a round of reconsiderations for some other programs because some districts have invested a lot of money in some of this stuff. So that's all happening on this website. Another thing coming out of the READ Act that I, as a parent, really love is that there is a portion now where schools are responsible for letting families know if their child is below grade level. Now, we think that's obvious. Like, you should know if your child's below grade level. That seems like an obvious thing a teacher or a school should communicate. It's not always the case that transparency is clear. So this is just making sure there is clear, transparent information that parents are getting notified 2 times a year if their child is at or below. And if their child is below, the school has to lay out what the school's plan is to help with remedial support. And it will also then lay out things the family should be doing at home, because this is a partnership. That's very exciting for me. And in my last section, I'm going to talk about reading at home. And so I loved the perspective too of as a grandparent, what you might be able to do. So back at your table, what did reading support maybe look like for you as a child growing up? Or what have you seen in your family structure? Or what is something that you've maybe been able to offer a grandchild, great niece, something like that? So switching the conversation to what does reading support look like at home? Go ahead. I'm going to bring us back together. I told Phil I was going to be like early and I wouldn't talk this whole time, and here I am talking the whole time. Sorry, Phil. So just to wrap up, reading at home. And again, if you are a grandparent, ways to support reading at home as a grandparent. My biggest thing and my biggest challenge as a parent is making books more accessible than screens. I live this every day as a parent. And for me, if it was time for dessert and I was offered ice cream or some fresh fruit, I'd pick ice cream. I would. I'd be honest. I'd pick the ice cream. Our kids are always going to pick the screens. It's not even a question. They're always going to pick the screens. There's only a very few amount of kids that are going to say, oh, I actually go on to read my book. So what we have to do as the grown-ups is what we can do, and what we have to do is make sure that books are more accessible than screens. I mean, the kids in your life should be tripping over books. They are just everywhere, literally.
My wife is an avid reader and librarian by training. She reads fantastically, but she reads on her screen. Can you combine the two? Yeah, I mean, you know, if you pick one name versus the other.
Yes, you can combine the two. For the at-home viewers, it was, what does reading on a screen look like? I think it starts to click probably not until 3rd or 4th grade. Up until 3rd and 4th grade, your little ones are practicing their fluency. And up until my daughter was about 2nd grade, I still had her reading out loud. So if they're reading out loud, great. Come 3rd or 4th grade, they could be reading on a screen independently. But up until that point, I don't, all those alphabet programs and those apps that are saying kids are learning how to read, I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Your mentioning reading out loud reminds me that it wasn't until a couple years ago that I got my soft vowels aligned because I was taking a voice class. So I'm wondering how often it's the kids aren't hearing the sounds and can't understand it. I am now legally blind and print handicapped, so I'm listening to everything.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing is that kids aren't reading out loud. They just don't have enough practice with those sounds and putting them together.
Janelle?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We really appreciate your expertise in getting everybody engaged. Very good. So thank you for sharing your experiences. And next Sunday, we're going to continue our series on early childhood reading skills. We have 2 teachers coming in that Jenelle works with. One from a special assignment teacher for the St. Paul school systems, and Westminster member Suzanne Rico is also going to be here as well. They're going to be doing a panel presentation and getting us a little bit more engaged with this topic. So thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing all of you next week.
Awesome. I'll stick around if you have any more questions.